What's up, everyone? And today I'm bringing a deck before my Witchcrafters. Now, Witchcrafters is a deck that came out of Infinity Chasers along with Evil Eye and Infinitrax, and it's a very interesting deck that focuses around discarding spells. And if you can obviously see here, I actually do run a Sky Striker engine in this deck. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the channel because 90% of the people watching this video are not subscribed. So, without further ado, let's get right into the video. First, I run 3 Witchcrafter Shemitah. During the main phase quick effect, you contribute this card, then discard one spell, special summon one Witchcrafter monster from your deck. Now, pretty much all the, well, at least all the lower level Witchcrafters monster have that effect to where you contribute this card, well, attribute the monster, discard one spell, and special summon a Witchcrafter monster from your deck. You mainly want to use that to get into your bigger Witchcrafter monsters. Now, the downside to this deck is obviously you have to use 2 resources to get one, both the monster and a spell in order to bring out the other one. And Shemitah has an additional effect that you can banish this card from your graveyard, send one Witchcrafter card from your deck to the graveyard. So I can get one of your Witchcrafters in the grave, like Witchcrafter Jenny. Jenny, during the main phase quick effect, you contribute this card, discard one spell, special summon Witchcrafter monster from your deck, and then you can banish this card from your graveyard and one Witchcrafter spell. This effect becomes that spell's effect. So let's say I run the 1 Witchcrafter Bitior. During the main phase, you can distribute this card, discard one spell, special summon Witchcrafter monster from the deck, same as all the other Witchcrafters, minus the big ones. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, draw 1 card. Then send 1 Witchcrafter card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you have none, banish your entire hand. The secondary effect, the draw power is nice, but the downside isn't good at all. Now into the big Witchcrafters, I run 3 Witchcrafter Madame Veer. Now the higher level Witchcrafter monsters are actually pretty good. Madame Veer, during damage calculation, if your spellcaster monster battles an opponent's monster, a quick effect, you reveal any number of spells with different names in your hand. And if you do, the battling monster gains 1000 attack for each card revealed. And it also has a quick effect, you can discard 1 spell, negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. So, it's Harpy's Featherstorm, essentially. Again, the only downside is you have to discard a spell, and sometimes you may have no spells in your hands after getting into Madame Veer because you have to use one of the lower Witchcrafters to get into it first. I also run the 1 Witchcrafter Golemaru. Golemaru is pretty nice. It's like a hand trap for Witchcrafters. When your opponent activates a card effect that targets the spellcaster monster you control, or targets it for an attack, quick effect, you target 1 card your opponent controls, or 1 Witchcrafter spell in your graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, return that targeted card to the hand. I also run the 1 Witchcrafter Hein. Now, Hein is like Madame Veer, except instead of spells or negating effects, it destroys. Your opponent cannot target other spellcaster monsters you control with card effects, and as a quick effect, you discard 1 spell, then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls, destroy it. So it's destruction, essentially. I run the 1 Sky Striker Ace Ray. In testing, the Sky Striker engine really works out with this deck a whole lot. Mainly in the fact because you discard lots of spells, so you can easily build up fodder for your Sky Striker cards. And additionally, you don't really have a lot of monsters on the field. You may have like 1 at most times. And the main reason as to why is for the Sky Striker is Kagari, which can add a Sky Striker spell from your grave to your hand. So that way you can always have some sort of fodder for your Witchcrafter effects. I run the 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring to round out the monsters. Moving on to spells. Yeah, all this is spells. I run 3 Witchcrafter Creation. Witchcrafter Creation is easily the best Witchcrafter spell. It allows you to add a Witchcrafter monster from your deck to your hand, and then during your end phase, if you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card's in your graveyard, you can add it to your hand. All the Witchcrafter spells have that effect too. If they're in the grave and you control a Witchcrafter, you can add them back to your hand. The one downside is you can only use 1 of their effects per turn. So if you use the search effect, you can't add it back to your hand, and it's only during your end phase, so not easy to get back either. I run 3 Witchcrafter Holiday. Witchcrafter Holiday, you can target a Witchcrafter monster in your graveyard to special summon it. During the end phase, if you control a Witchcrafter monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card from your grave to your hand. I also run 3 Unveiling. Unveiling, you can special summon Witchcrafter monster from your hand, and if you do, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your spellcaster monster effects for the rest of the turn. And I also run 1 Witchcrafter Bystreet. Bystreet, not quite as powerful as the previous 3 Witchcrafter spells. If a Witchcrafter monster you control would discard to activate an effect, you can send this card from your field to the graveyard instead. So it becomes neutral. You could easily just leave this card in the hand and it'd be the same effect. It's mainly for spell purposes, so you have a spell to discard because you always want lots of spells in your hand. I also run the 1 Witchcrafter scroll. Scroll, if a Witchcrafter monster you control would be discarded, would discard to activate an effect. You send this card from your field to the graveyard instead. Kind of the same reason as By Street. And like the rest of the Witchcrafter spells, they can return themselves to the hand. I run 3 Pot of Prosperity. A lot of times you don't really use your extra deck too much. Well, yes, you do use your Sky Striker cards, but that's a smaller engine and you're not necessarily always going to have that option open. So like if you want to banish, like say Kiana, Zeke, or some other cards, that's perfectly fine. I also run the 1 Pot of Avarice. Yes, I know you can't activate Avarice and Prosperity on the same turn. But with us running Sky Strikers, you can get 5 monsters into the grave very easy. And additionally, let's say you open with both of them. Then you could just discard one of them to activate the effect of a Witchcrafter monster. Even a dead spell has use in this deck. I run 3 Secret Village of Spellcasters. Secret Village is easily one of the best spellcaster field spells in the entire game. If you control a spellcaster monster, your opponent cannot activate spell cards. So this is really good. Because if you run them, especially like in like a back row decks or yeah, like in back row if you run back row decks, basically you can avoid so much disruption. Like if you have this, no droplets, no lightning storm, no dark ruler. Basically you get so much protection from this. And some decks, like Sky Strikers for example, rely heavily on their spells. And even some of the other ones like Drytron, right? That is a deck that relies on spells. So stuff like Secret Village and Imperial Order really hurt it. I also run 3 Sky Striker Area Space Area 0. Area 0, you can target one other card you control, execute the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can add 1 excavated Sky Striker card from your deck to your hand. That's not going to be too likely because you don't run many Sky Striker cards. You only run a total of 5 or a total of 6, including the Area 0. I run the 1 Terraforming to help with the field spells. I run the 1 Sky Striker Mecha Hornet Drones. Hornet Drones, if you control a monster's main monster zone, you can special summon a token. And then you can just go into all your Sky Striker plays from there. I also run the 1 Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. Yeah, Engage is back at 1. Don't know how that happened, but I can't say I'm too upset because personally I never really hated Sky Strikers. I never really found them to be a problem. And I think 1 Engage is fine. Like, honestly, I probably wouldn't even care if they brought back 3. If Sky Striker re-entered the format as like one of the best decks, that would not bother me fine because I can easily count those decks just fine. And lastly, I run 3 Foolish Burial Goods to help get some spells in the graveyard. Moving on to the extra deck. First off, I run 3 Sky Striker Ace Shizuku. Sky Striker Ace Shizuku requires a non-water Sky Striker Ace monster. Essentially, all the Sky Strikers can go into any other Sky Striker Ace except for their own. So I can't go Shizuku into Shizuku. Monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each spell in your graveyard. Considering you want to have a lot of spells in the graveyard, that really works out on this. And once per turn during the end phase, if this card was special summoned this turn, you can add a Sky Striker spell from your deck to your hand. I also run 3 Sky Striker Ace Hayate. Hayate, you can special summon Sky Striker Hayate. If this card can attack directly, and after damage calculation, if this card battled, you can send a Sky Striker card from your deck to the graveyard. You're not likely to be using that effect. You may just want it for the attacking directly. I also run 3 Sky Striker Ace Kagari. Now, Kagari, if this card is special summoned, you can target 1 Sky Striker spell on your card in your graveyard, add to your hand. So basically, either add back the field spell, the Hornet Drones, or the Engage. Most often times, you're probably going to be adding back either the Engage or the Drones. And like I said earlier, the main reason for this is to just grab those cards back so you can eventually just discard them off of your Witchcrafter effects. I also run 3 Sky Striker Ace Kiana. Kiana, if this card is special summoned, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. It cannot attack until the end of your opponent's turn. Each time you activate a Sky Striker spell or its effect, gain 1,000 life points immediately after this effect's resolved. Next, I run 2 Sky Striker Ace Zeke. Zeke, once per turn, if this card is link summoned, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field, banish it until your opponent's next end phase. Once per turn, you can target 1 other card you control. This card gains 1,000 attacks. Also send that targeted card to the graveyard. So this one is essentially can eventually get a pretty high attack, but you have to wait quite a bit just to activate that. Also run the 1 Appaloosa and the 1 Axis Kotaku to round out the deck profile. What do you think of Witchcrafters? Think it's a pretty cool deck? Do you like the Sky Striker package in it? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you in the next update. Bye.